Again, we find ourselves here. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up as usual to the live stream. Good to see so many people here tonight. Whether you're watching this live right now or if you're going to watch this later in the rerun, I really do appreciate you taking the time to stop by and watch. Don't forget to hit that like button. And also, make comments down in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. We'll take any questions from you, and in future shows, we'll read them out loud and we'll try to answer them. So put that down in the comments section if you got a question. I usually start my weeks off telling you about the things that I've bought or traded or sold. And hey, Ben, welcome. And my dealings of equipment this week, I had another. First off, I'm going to start by saying that this week on Thursday, I had my first wisdom tooth extraction in my life. Hey, hello, welcome. And it's not because there was anything wrong. Hey, welcome. Yo. And it's not anything was wrong with the tooth. I was walking down the steps of my house, a lot of steps, and hey, Mickey, evening. And I missed a step and I slipped and I cracked my tooth. And they said, well, we'll have to take it out. So I never had a tooth extraction before in my life. I went all these years without experiencing this joy. And it came out easily enough, but boy, I have been in misery to a certain extent for the last 3 or 4 days. There was no way that I was going to be able to do any kind of filming for a show this week. So I kind of put that aside. So that's why you guys didn't get another show this week out of me. I've just been in agony. I am right now. I can feel it right here. So, but it is healing. It is getting better, and it is. It's funny when you go into those places. They're like, "While you're here, you might as well just take the other ones out." Your guy standing there with a pair of pliers and a bloody apron. Just go ahead. We'll take the rest of them out for you. No problem. I was like, "No, I'm good. I came here because this." I'm not doing anything. I didn't even want to. I didn't even want to do this. I told him. But anyway, I am recovering. So I do appreciate you guys and your patience for me not putting out another content this week. I will more than make up for it next week. I told you that I'll be going down to Utrecht on Wednesday to go to Dirkman's Music, and we'll go down there and take a look at that music store. Wisdom tooth removed. It isn't pleasant. No, Mickey, it is not. I learned that. Like I said, for years, multiple countries and multiple dentists, they've always been trying to get me to take my wisdom tooth out. I said, no, why? It's not bothering me. There's nothing wrong with it. It happened as a fluke. Like I said, I fell and the tooth cracked because I bit down hard as I was falling and just cracked that sucker. So it had to go. I am in misery. I really truly am. But not as bad. It gets better every day, And so I am recovering from that. Thank you very much, everybody. What else is going on? So yeah, gear this week. So I traded up a couple of my pedals. As you know, I'm trying to get rid of my pedal collection, just sitting around literally gathering dust. It's just something that is, bought a lot of pedals over the years and years and years. And I had an idea for my set that I have there in my next room that I have my guitars and I usually shoot my content at, that I was going to put a shelf up and then line that up with pedals. And I bought the shelf, got the pedals, and just decided, no, I don't want to do that. I want to wallpaper that wall with something interesting. So that's out. So the pedals are getting slowly traded away. I traded one of them for a guitar. I traded one of them for this Hall of Fame here. and I traded two of them of my vintage Tone Monster, which was a great pedal. I mainly bought it just for the content show that I did talking about do these tube amp pedals really, or real tube pedals really work, and how much voltage do you need to really to drive through that tube in order to color the sound. But I ended up really liking it. I have, as you know, some really vintage tubes from the 60s around here, and I put a vintage tube in it. And boy, I liked it so much, and I used it on a recording. But it was just something that was huge. You know, it takes up a lot of space. And, you know, there's other pedals that do it a lot easier, a lot better, and a lot smaller footprint. So that went along with that tiny spring, that reverb unit that I've just been trashing. I hated that thing. Expensive, you know, it's like a $60, $70 pedal, but my God, it was awful. It was the worst spring reverb I've ever heard. So I traded those two in for, drum roll, a JHS Charlie Brown version 4. Now the JHS Charlie Brown version 4 is a JTM 45 copy. It's going to fill my number 3 slot in my pedal board where my AYA Tokyo pedal is. Again, the AYA Tokyo pedal is based on the Marshall sound, stack sound, but I just found, you know, again, it's one of those pedals that it gets on my board for about a hot 5 minutes and then it gets replaced with something. I think I haven't played it. This is sight unseen, guys, on this pedal. But from what I've heard and from our research, it's going to cover that spot very nicely. So I'll have my Fender cleans, that Vox-driven sound that I like, and I'll have that Marshall JTM 45 available on hand for recording. So that would be awesome. So I did that this week, and that should be arriving. I am still waiting for a package of kindness, Mickey, that's yet to arrive yet, but I'm sure that's coming. Things are really mailing very slowly these days. It's quite alarming. If you guys have Christmas stuff or they're going to send out or things that you want to start receiving, you may want to keep that in mind. That shipping right now is really slow. It's getting really bad. So anyway. So I'm expecting those things to come in, so it should be a very good week for me. Equipment-wise, exciting. I'm looking forward to it. It's always good to have something to look forward to in life, I always say. All right, so let's talk about the first topic tonight. I want to talk about heavy guitars. You know, there's been a lot, we've had some stuff great off of these, and we've had some great strikes there in the UK. Post office strikes, yeah. You got strikes in UK, but in the case of the States and here in Europe, it's really a case of stuff piling up and not enough people, which is actually, practically the same thing as a strike, in order to process, the packages and letters. Which is odd, in a lot of places here. In the airports, there's a shortage of staffs, which is causing problems at train stations, on the trains. So it's a very interesting phenomenon that's slowing things down. So something I would take in consideration. Heavy guitar. So, I decided on a format for my live stream. I don't want it to be willy-nilly. Because I would like there to be a little bit of form to this. I do script these, as you know. I have a script either here next to me, or in this case, I wrote it big enough this time. I can read it here on the floor. But I usually like to start off with, as I said, my gear, what I did that week, and a little, talk about what's going on. And the next subject, I usually like to get into what I'm reading on the internet forums. If I find a subject this week that I read about that I found fascinating, and there certainly was, and that's the subject of heavy guitars and the notion that heavy guitars have more sustain to them. Now, I generally am of the opinion myself. There's a couple of camps on this one, but I'm on the camp that if you pick up a guitar and it resonates with you and it sounds good, uh, if it's light or heavy, that doesn't really matter. If it's a light guitar, then that would be a bonus, of course. But I don't personally subscribe to the notion that heavier guitars have more sustain to them. This whole concept of heavy guitars having more sustain to them started back in the 1970s. Now, you say, Mike, how do you know that? Well, unfortunately, I was around in the 1970s discussing guitars in the 1970s, so I know I'm old enough to know of what I speak on this subject. Back then, I don't know where, and I don't know the source of this. I'm sure it was two guys hanging in the backstage of some club one night in Milwaukee, 1972, 73, December, I'm feeling it was a wintertime kind of thing. And one of them said, hey, you know what? Your guitar sounds great. Yeah, it's really heavy. It's got a lot of sustain to it. Confusing personal experience and personal preferences to actual, information or truth. And anyway, in the 70s, it really was considered that heavy guitars had more sustain to them, and people began to seek more heavier guitars. Now, Gibson has its hand in this, as they usually do, as in any, a good story. There's always a villain lurking in the background. In this case, the usual suspects of Gibson. They, during their Norland era, were producing heavier guitars just because they were just using whatever wood that they could get. It was a bad time for Gibson. They were, for all intents and purposes, bankrupt. They had at one point 300 employees, and by the mid 70s, they were down to about 103, 104. So they were hurting, they were using anything, and they started producing the Norland era guitars, which are known as being heavy. Cats were buying these guitars, and they were playing. They were, I guess, through anecdotal evidence, as I stated, they were feeling that these guitars were superior to lighter ones. Now, fast forward. Well, no, let me put a bookmark in that and give you a little bit of my own personal experience. There was this guy. I think I've told you this story. There was this guy who I met through my friend Drake Gooseby, who introduced me really to learning how to play funk and rhythm guitar. And he knew a guy who was a buddy of his who made his own guitar. This thing, like I said, I really think the guy made it out of some kind of, like household goods furniture, because it was heavy. I don't know. I think it was oak. I really, as I seem to recall, it was oak body, oak neck, heavy frets, strung with 13s. Yeah. I guess he had to have such a gauge like that just to keep the tension. But in any case, I remember picking up one time, and then this is me, 13, 14, 15, 13, 14 years old. I'm picking this thing and I'm trying to play it. I'm thinking, my God, I'm never going to be a guitar player because he was a good player. He was really tight. He's the one who we were all playing one day, and he stopped us and he said, somebody's out of pocket, meaning me, my rhythm was off. And he called me out in order to chastise me, embarrass me, but also to educate me as well about learning, keeping time and learning how to do that. But his guitar was a monster. I mean, it was the heaviest guitar I've ever. And in terms of playability, even today, now that I consider myself, I am a pro, I'm a professional guitar player, I wouldn't be able to play that thing. I wouldn't be able to. Still, I don't think a lot of you guys would be able to. And so, but he built that. Again, like I said, he didn't select the lightest woods he could. He got the heaviest ones he could, because there was that vibe of heavy guitar, I can't quote him directly, remembering him saying exactly this, but I know that he was of the camp, the heavier guitar, the more sustain it had to it. And fast forward to later on, when these heavier guitars that were being marketed and going out there on the market really started to decline in people's minds. Something occurred where actually it began that lighter guitars were better, because these heavy ones, they were backbreakers, and then you got a period in the 80s and the 90s when nobody wanted the heavier guitars. Nobody wanted them. And that solidified that general opinion of Norlin guitars. But they were in demand in the 70s because people thought that heavier guitars, and then that switched on a dime. Gibson steps again into this narrative when in the 1980s they came out with their reissue historics. And with the reissue historics, they started including the weights of the guitars, as a selling point. And people would want the lighter ones. And so, that reversed it. Like I said, the heavier ones went out of fashion, the lighter ones went into fashion. And Gibson profited off of that, being the cool guys that they are, by saying, hey, you can now pick the weight of your guitar. Honestly, no, weight of the guitar doesn't have anything to do with sustain really at all. Again, it's the gauge of your strings. I think in this case, in this part, the guitar is the sum of the whole parts, that's going to have the most effect on your sustain. A lot of cats like Prince. My first Kramer guitar was multiple, and it was 11 pounds. So 19. I didn't keep it that long. Yeah, I told you guys about my Cort guitars that I grew up playing, basses and guitars. Those things were, you want to talk about, they were not light themselves, but that was just, one of those things. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, a lot, and this bass behind me is a 14 pound boat, but I love it. I love the sound of it. All the jazz basses I've had have been boats. I think that's just a component of a jazz bass. A good, or at least, I don't know if it's a good one or not. I've never run into a light one to compare. Just hasn't come down my wheelhouse quite yet. And dig that. So no, it's your string gauge. Prince played 11s. Stevie Ray Vaughan, when he first started out, was playing 13s. He eventually did move down to 11s because it got to be a little bit too much. But Prince specifically talks about how the heavier gauge strings led to his sustain, because he loves sustain. Any Prince solo you listen to, it's got sustain forever. And according to his engineer, he used this stuff called finger ease. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. I don't know if they even still make that anymore, but it's stuff you can put on your guitar strings in order to make it a little bit more, especially the heavier gauges, to make it a little bit more easier to play. And according to his engineer, he ate that stuff up like candy, but he was using 11s and he got a lot of sustain. Sustain is not going to come. I've heard heavy guitars that sustained, and light guitars that sustained, and vice versa. It really isn't the gauge of the string that makes the difference here, and that's just a fact of it. So do your back a favor, save some money on your chiropractic bills, and if you find a heavy guitar, like I love this bass, it's a boat, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because it sounds good. It literally is, I didn't have to change anything. It's good to go. They make fingeries. Yeah, they still make fingeries. Okay, that's cool. Fingeries is a way to go. I got introduced to it back by a guy named Steve Demont, who was a jazz guitar player. He was the guy I told you who had a Gibson Custom. He had a late 60s Gibson Custom, the envy of high school among guitar players. This guy's Gibson Custom, black tuxedo black. Ooh, that guitar was good, but he used fingeries, introduced me to it because I was complaining I hadn't gotten my calluses. My fingers right now, I can take things out of a hot oven. Now, no problems. I have so much callus on my fingers. But back then, yeah, I used that stuff. I didn't particularly take to it. But heavier gauges is really where you're going to go. Now that's up to you. I use 9 gauge, a custom set of 9 gauges that that work for me for the different styles that I play. I'm tempted to try to try 11 gauge on one of my guitars one of these days, just to see how it goes. But I don't see that really being something that I feel I would really like to do. I've developed my playing style and my touch around nines. Too slippery for me. That's what she said. Yeah, man. Yeah, that was the same reason with me. I couldn't. I didn't like that. I didn't see the need for that. And I sweat a lot. And believe me, it's going to get its own natural finger ease after a while. All right, next subject. I think I covered that enough. Again, the main culprit in this was Gibson. In all these cases, if you really dig down into where the origin of the thought that heavy guitars come, it comes from Northern era Gibsons. And then why there's this great premium on whether it's heavier or lighter. Again, it comes to Gibson. These guys are and these are through different managements too. There's a Northern era management, the Harry J era that did this pricing thing, this reissue historic pricing thing, and these cats you got now, it just gets worse and worse in some of the things that they do. So they help perpetuate that myth. And no, again, just last time, it's your string gauge. String gauge. It really comes down to string gauge. I told you a story of my heaviest guitar I ever owned was a 79 Fender Strat. It was a boat anchor. Yeah, again, that was a time, that was that CBS era, or was that during or just post? So anyway, the CBS era was just like the New Orleans era. They were cost cutting. It was run by accountants. And, they were putting out some righteous boats. They really were. And I grew up on that. Imagine, I'm a kid of that era. So, to me, you say a guitar is heavy, or, I'm like, man, I have encountered some boats in my life. I prefer the Telecasters again, because if you get a good 6 to 7 pound, somewhere in that range Telecaster, you're gold, And I like those. My Les Paul weighs 8.2 pounds. And I didn't ask for it. I just got lucky. That Tele is, I can't remember it, guys, now. It's in that range. It's under 7 pounds, 6 pounds. It's just over 6 pounds or something like that. So it's just a beauty. I got lucky. I didn't choose those specifically. It's just the luck of the draw. Harley Benton guitars are known as being, they don't talk about that a lot in those Harley Benton guitar reviews. A lot, or they should really emphasize that. Yeah, those Harley Bentons are interesting for the market niche that they fill, but those are boats. Those are true. The way, those are made from some heavy woods, dense woods, heavy woods. So, yeah, but even with my double cup custom, I got lucky. That thing came in at 8.1 pounds, so just slightly, whoops, sorry guys, slightly lighter actually than the Les Paul. But yeah, string gauge, guys. All right, so that's a good segue. Let's talk about this $500. Let's talk about the subject of $500 being a budget guitar. And I'm getting to the point where I'm really trying to understand this concept. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and Fern. I was talking to Fern this week because I took my Telecaster into him this week just to drop it off with him. As soon as all the parts are assembled and come together from different parts of the world, he's going to put it together for me. Well, we were talking about that guitar specifically. That actually wasn't the first 40th anniversary. I don't know if I talked about this last week. No, because it just happened this week. Uh, Fern and I were talking about that 40th anniversary Telecaster, and it was not the first 40th anniversary Telecaster that Fern had into his shop this month. He actually had one of the Strats in, and he still had it there. The guy hadn't picked it up yet, so I got to take a look at that 40th anniversary Strat. This was the one that had the funky gold hardware to it, the gold scratch plate, gold, all the hardware was gold on it. And a really funky blue, bright blue color. I was like, I don't know if I like this color. But we talked about those guitars, and we talked about the price of them. And both of us kind of shook our heads when people will refer to these instruments as budget guitars. Because to both of our minds, $500 is a lot of money, regardless of how you cut it, you know? And really, I read an article this week on Zero Hedge. I read the Zero Hedge a lot. Tell you a little bit about myself personally. I read that actually religiously every day. But and they were talking about how 47% of Americans can't even come up with $500 if an emergency bill came up. If you needed a car repair, a hospital emergency room, something came up, something like that. When you have 40% of a population who can't come up with $500, I question calling a $500 guitar a budget guitar. I really question that. And I can come back over here to I don't even have to pick on the States. I can talk about here in Europe where the percentage is higher because of energy issues and food issues, inflations and things like that. That again, I question the statement that $500 designates a budget guitar. A budget, really? You know, some people will throw out the nomenclature. Well, we don't call it a budget guitar. We'll call it a value guitar. And value is not, value more or less speaks to the sum of the whole being better than what you're paying for it. Budget sort of speaks of it being cheap. And those are other words that go along. $500 is definitely not a budget guitar in my eyes. Thank you, Mickey. I appreciate that. And not just in your eyes. I'm going to throw out there to say that in 97%, 100% of the wives, but in 90% of the $500 is definitely not a budget instrument by the way it's going to your area. Yeah, dig that. 100% of the wives, but 90% of the cats out there will tell you will agree that $500, calling $500 a budget guitar is insane. It's insane. And I don't get it. I see it on YouTube. Hey, we got this great budget guitar, or check out the new budget whatever. And I'm like, I look it up and I'm like, dude, that's like a $600-700 guitar. What are you talking about? What crack are you smoking? You know, you're not all troggly. You can't ball it like he does and make those kind of statements. I'll respect it from him. Everybody else, I'm joking. That term budget guitar, it needs, I think there needs to be really kind of a clarification. And on that, I think we need to move away from making those kind of statements, especially when we're talking about Epiphones and Squiers and some of these Indonesian made PRSs and others. Because these guitars, this is, folks, it's not the 1970s anymore. It's the 1980s. We were just sharing stories about our crappy, instruments that we had when we were growing up. Those were entry level instruments. They were 180 bucks or less, or even $100 or less. And those were budget instruments, and we quickly found out that with or entry level, those were true budget instruments. Okay, if we're going to designate something as a budget, I would say that your entry level would be the only way and the only time that you could use that term. Anything other than an entry level guitar, and then people argue with you with an entry level guitar. Well, no, entry level guitar is like $100, $180 if it comes with a bundle with an amp and cord and all that. A Squire Bullet now 300 is in Australia. Yeah, and I'm not even talking again. The inflation when it comes to these items in Canada. God, the inflation on these things is incredible. My Canadian brothers and sisters, here we're talking sometimes, and they're like, "Well, it costs this in Canadian dollars." I'm like, "Holy moly's!" So yeah, an entry level is the only one that I would designate as a budget guitar, and I, you know, I can remember selling new Epiphone as well as standards for 190 in the shop when I was working on Epiphones. Or yeah, well again, yeah, it's crazy how the inflation on the instruments has gone up and played a factor in this. Again, why you can't call a $500 guitar a budget, because there's a lot of factors that go into making that guitar what it is at the value that it is. Have they got some out there that are crazily overpriced? Yes. Well, that's a separate subject. But again, talking about these four different categories of guitars, the first category is your entry level, $100 or less, 180 or less if it's with a bundle. They give you those cheap amps, that actually I know guys who have recorded albums using their cheap little practice pig amp that they got as when they were young. I don't know if you guys know what a pig amp is. Maybe I'm dating myself with those. But they used to use those to record with, because it gave us, not for, for leads, because it gave a certain tone to it. But if it's in a bundle like that, then anything 180 below is your entry level, or what I will allow to be called a budget level guitar. Mid-range guitars, it's been said that a mid-range guitar will cost you between $200 to $800. Now that's covering a lot of territory, and that means that 90% of the guitars out there that consumers, that the general consumer or any musician of any level, unless you're a superstar, that's your bread and butter zone. that's where you're pretty much going to fall in. There'll be some outliers, you might get a nail through your head and decide to go out there and buy a custom shop Gibson or wait 4 years for the equivalent Fender. But if not, then this is your sweet spot, the so-called mid-range guitars. Now, mid-range really talks about how a guitar is constructed and the quality of its woods, the quality of its components, pickups, things of that nature. Again, the sum of the parts, wiring, how well it's done or not, caps and pots. That's why and a lot of these levels, tiers of guitars kind of meld into each other. The entry levels don't, because I will say that an entry level guitar is a mistake to buy. If you got kids out there, or if you're starting to play guitar and you think, well, I'll just dip my toe in and get one of these, I wouldn't buy an entry level guitar, because 99% of the time they're going to need some kind of setup that's going to cost you 60 bucks. And if you got a parent who doesn't know anything about guitars and a kid who's just starting and he picks that thing up and the action is like 5 foot off the fretboard, it's gonna discourage them. It's gonna put them off. It's gonna put the parents off because, hey, I just bought this and I gotta spend another 50, 60 bucks so that it actually play. So I would stay away from those. No, the sweet spot for us, most folks, are these so-called mid-range $200 to $800 guitars, and they do blend into each other. For example, then high-end guitars are those from the 800 to, we'll say, whatever price Gibson puts their Les Pauls up for this week. It seems to change quite often. That would designate your high-end guitar, but actually the Epiphone Lazarus, as a matter of fact, any of the Epiphone signature guitars, the Epiphone 59, a lot of the SG that they just came out with, 61, all of these actually are not considered to be mid-range guitars. These are actually mid-range guitars. These are actually considered to be high-end guitars. Dig that. So again, I'm insulted when if anybody, and they have, and you can go through my comment section and read the comments, where somebody says that my 59 is a budget, cheap budget Chinese guitar. It's one of those, but it's not all of those, and I'm not going to get into the geopolitics of where it was made. So to refer to what really on that scale would fall truthfully into what is considered to be a high-end guitar, and to call it a budget is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Just like calling any one of those mid-range guitars to be budget is ridiculous. Especially again when I point out that $500 cash seems to be a hard thing for a lot of folks to come up with. You know, we have got to stop. The reason I told the story, I started this out telling the story about the heavy guitars, heavy wood guitars, the heavyweight guitars, is to show you that marketing, Gibson picked up on that. And they began the Epiphone 59 with hard case is dropped 100 price over this week from $700 to $640. Okay, great. Now it's fallen into the, is that in pounds or dollars? But anyway, regardless, it's fallen into the mid-range. Over here in Europe, they're still going for 899 euros, essentially $900. So yeah, I guess it depends upon where you're at or if they're going up on sale. Pounds, yeah. Well, let's calculate how much that comes out to in pounds. It may put it around $800 or so. But it still is, it's one of those, like I said, that straddles the line between what's considered to be a high-end guitar and a mid-range guitar. And to call it anything less than that, or to feel like you possess or own anything less than that, is the psychology that has, permeated since, again, the first time you sat down and had your first bowl of Sugar Smacks, from the TV commercial. Again, the reason, whoops, my main light went out. One of the reasons why I brought up again that Gibson, the wood waste, is to show you that they picked up on that and they used it as marketing in terms to further their sales. And so, the truth of it was never really sussed out until now. You got great guys on YouTube that I can't think of the channel, but everybody, you know who I'm talking about. The guy who takes, he'll take strings and he'll take 2 benches and he'll run that or concrete or anything just to demonstrate to you that the wood has no bearing in it at all. And the sound, the output of your guitar. It's your pickups, your string, your speaker. That's it, And that's why when we get into that last category above high end, which are custom guitars, you're really at that point, you're paying for just the beauty of it, the art of it, that and the name stamped on the top of it, maybe. But there are private builders that can cost just as much as Gibson or Fender or PRS. So I saw one today that. Beautiful guitar. It has nothing on it at all. But it was made by the same guy who's now working for Fender Master Shop He made these guitars in his shop before he started going to work for them, and it's a gorgeous Telecaster. If I had just got one, I would seriously consider it. It's pricey, but it's nowhere near as pricey as the ones that he's now producing that have the Fender logo on top. Those are 3 or 4 times more than this one. Same guy making the same guitar, using, in my opinion, better woods. Okay, I think I've made my point here. I think you guys see where I'm going. So we have got to stop falling for this Bernays marketing psychology that we have. You got to fight it. You got to fight the power. You got to fight that power, man. You got to put it out of your head and don't allow people to put you down and say, hey, you're playing an Epiphone or a Squire Bullet or whatever, and that's a budget guitar. Baloney. Baloney. Pure baloney. Pure and simple. Those are not budget guitars. That pathway from that entry-level guitar to that mid-tier guitar, as I've said before, that gap between the quality of this guitar and this one is really high. It's a big distance. The distance between that, let's say the mid-range and the high-end guitar is very narrow. It's very small. And the custom between the high-end and the custom is even smaller. The differences. Therein lies where true value can be found. And as long as you are looking for value in terms of, again, the sum of the whole, and not so concerned what it says on the headstock, these days, again, guys, it's not the 1980s anymore. These import guitars are not the same animals that they were when we were growing up. They are excellent. Again, Fern and I talking about that guitar and getting into the quality of it, we were both very impressed. Those 59s are great guitars. I picked it because of this channel and thank you. I appreciate it. Well, it is. It is an excellent guitar, but I will go so far to say that on the lower end, that Harley Benton SC, a double cut, DC custom that I have, I don't feel the need to rush out and buy any kind of SG guitar. It covers that bass excellently. It's an excellent made guitar. Hey, welcome. I'm glad you made it. Hey, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. That guitar, that DC custom, satisfies my urge for an SG style guitar because it's a mahogany body, mahogany neck. I put in custom wiring, custom pickups, change the tuners on it, and that thing is a monster. If you want an SG sound, that's the way to go. It checks all the boxes, and it looks good too. At a fraction of the price of even its Epiphone equivalent, the 61. That, interestingly enough, is starting to come down in price. That one's down in price. I saw that for under 600 euros. Oh, the 59s are great guitars. I picked one up this year. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, they are great guitars. But again, that's that Epiphone at $899. I don't believe is as good a guitar as that Harley Benton at whatever I paid for it, $240. I think I've seen YouTube. Didn't reach. I'm gonna read the comments here at the end, guys. I'll go through them. If I didn't read it as you're scrolling up, we'll go through it here at the end. Dig that. So those are your 4 categories. You got your entry level, which by all means stay away from. Mid-range, which I don't even know how entry level guitars even exist in this day and age. What is it? What's that guitar company that I forget this. I swear they look like toys. You got some guys on YouTube that are reviewing them. They're like, "Oh, this is the most awesome guitar under $100." Mexican, yeah. I'll get to it. They just rant and rave about these under $100 guitars. Stay away from them, guys, unless you have the ability to work on guitars. If you got a workshop, you got all the tools, You got everything you need in order to work on those to make them playable. Don't do it. Mid-range, high-end, and custom. And you and I, and again, I will say, okay, I'll be fair. 90% of the people out there fall in that second category. That's your sweet spot. We again, some of us, thought Faisleys, yeah. So, seriously, that's your sweet spot. And we will get into the high end by accident. And interestingly enough, introduced into the high end, in my case, through an Epiphone, which years ago, as was pointed out, was unthinkable. People were selling Epiphones under $200. Now they're going for over 1,000. So, and I'll tell you what, I will specifically pick up when I go to Barry's shop this Wednesday. I will specifically pick up the Joe Bonamassa 335, and we'll take a real close look at that. I'll show you guys, because I did it live when I was there. I played it. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. And I will pick up that 61 Epiphone as well and let you guys take a look at it. It is the most plain Jane looking SG I've ever seen. There's something about it that is just plain. And I think it may be the matte finish. I love the matte finish on the Telecaster that I have. I didn't like it, as you guys know, on the Epiphone 59, so I buffed it out. Maybe if they took that 61, if I got it and I buffed it out, I would like the way that it looked. But as a matte, again, it just doesn't work for me. You guys will get a chance to take a look at that. But yeah, anyway, let's stop this nonsense. Let's stop this ridiculous notion that a budget guitar, $500 represents a budget guitar. It's insulting, actually, And, I've talked about, I paid around $5 including setup. Yeah, and again, you got to take your setup costs in consideration as well, because cost of it may be $4.99, and then they'll say, well, we'll do this for, and it costs extra, whatever. So it can climb up and up. Doesn't feel like a budget guitar to me. Doesn't sound like one. So let's not call it that, and don't accept that. If you see it in the comments somewhere, if you're reading on my channel or somebody else's channel, and somebody down there starts talking about, well, that's a budget, this or that, say, hey, and of course everybody will try to hide and say, well, I've got money, yeah, right, buddy. Let's see how fast you are to take that $500 and go out and buy something with it and say that you bought something on a budget. It doesn't equate. It doesn't work. If you said, oh, I got it for $20, okay, but 500, come on, seriously. Let's stop that. We need to stop that. And if you see it, or if you hear it, the reason that I brought up these points tonight, so that you have talking points that you can use as ammunition against people when they say something like that to you. Say, hey, actually, my Epiphone 59 would be classified as a high-end guitar. My Squier 40th anniversary is where it should be. It's a mid-range guitar, and I don't see the need personally. Me personally, for a $3,000 Telecaster. Believe me, it does the job at $500. And even that, as I said, people bitched about it and complained and said, "Oh my God, Squiers for $500 Squiers." Not such a budget thing, is it? Those complaints, Yeah, dig that. So let's not do that. Let's stop that. If you guys see that, if you hear about it, if your bandmates bring it up, or if you see a comment somewhere and you're in a position to correct that, because the reality is that's a lot of money. And I think going forward here, I think a lot of people are in for a rude awakening for exactly how much money we're really talking about here. It's a serious investment. Uh, I, you know, I learned the hard way. Like I said, I had one, two, three, four Gibsons at one time, you know, and I actually liked the cheapest one of the four. That was the one, that Les Paul Classic, 98 Les Paul Classic Funky Gold Top. That was the one that I kind of gravitated towards. And I paid $1,500 for that in Japan. And I then went out and bought at 23, 24. I think the most expensive one I bought was a 93 Les Paul Classic for $2,500 cash, money. And then I got that Epiphone 59 because I heard so many things about it, and a lot of excitement. I had an Epiphone, as you know, it wasn't my first Epiphone. I've had several Epiphones. For different reasons, I gave one to my brother, and the other ones I sold off or moved on. They didn't resonate with me, what I was looking for. The minute that I got the 59 and I had my Gibsons and I had that Epiphone and I was able to sit here and play them, and that's when the epiphany came to me that, hey, you know what? This 59 guitar covers all the bases of this one, and I'm really not seeing the need to have this. So, and that's when I really, inside of myself, began to understand that, you know, where does tone really come from? You know, what really is the component of tone? And a guitar is the sum of its parts, as you know, I'm fond of saying. So, you know, it's been quite an education for me. It happened because of that guitar and having all those guitars around and be able, you know, to be able to make that kind of value judgment from the experience of having the actual things there. And that set me on a path of breaking free of looking at things solely based on the name. Not that I really did that a lot before. As you know, I was a one guitar guy for years and years. I had my Fender Telecaster. Um, yeah, you know, really seriously got an education in what's really important in terms of your tone, and and how to do it at a reasonable price uh, that can be saved up for or is attainable for it. Apparently, according to statistics, is half of you out there to be able to get immediately, at least half of you. That is good. If it was less, it'd be worse. But really pass that information on to you guys and share these thoughts and my opinions on these things. You know, uh, like the hypothetical two guys discussing heavy guitars in Milwaukee in 1970, winter of 73 I was talking about earlier. In the hypothetical situations where people take their personal experiences and they sort of try to spin those off into being the facts. I don't want to do that. You know, I want to gather. You know, a lot of my work that I do for my work, you know, the other work that I do in my life is research, and I'm with research. I'm information gathering from all these different sources in order to come to a conclusion that's based on as much relevant information as possible. And unfortunately, when you have two guys smoking cigars in the back of a club in 73, there's not a lot of, you know, pertinent information there. And that spins into mythology, and turns into, you know, where we're at today. And so I'm trying to cut through all of that and share this with you guys, give my opinions. You know, as I sit here next to a pedal board that I estimate, I did a little calculations, that's past $1,000 now, but it's my recording pedal board. That Charlie Brown is a $250 pedal. So yeah, that puts my pedal board here. You know, the price of a real good quality. Yeah, I think you could get a used Fender Twin Deluxe for that kind of, for the money that I put into this pedal board. But for recording sake, it's the path that I decided to go, so I've invested in it. But I've still done it through trading, you know. What's the Charlie Brown like? I will have to let you know, Mickey. I haven't got it yet. I am waiting for my Charlie Brown. I'm waiting for pickups, Telecaster pickups. I'm waiting for a couple of stuff to come through the mail here. I suppose that by this time next week, when we sit down again, the Charlie Brown will be sitting here over my shoulder, and I have some tales to tell about how the week went. Charlie Brown, I can't wait, but it's a pricey pedal, and it's actually my fingers crossed. I've got my first JHS pedal coming, and I like Josh and the guys. I know there's controversy regarding them, and I don't want to get into that. Again, like I said, it's got nothing to do with me and my guitar. It really doesn't. And so that one I don't put much weight on, but I've always wanted to have a JHS pedal. They just really present themselves as being a lot of the knowledge, pedal knowledge, that's really good out there on YouTube that I've drawn from myself when I wasn't sure was JHS channel. Josh just talking about things. So it's exciting to be able to get in Charlie Brown. Yes, again, I don't consider $250 to be a budget pedal. That's a high end. When we were talking about pedals last week or the week before, you know, that's at the high end of my budget for what I consider to spend on a pedal that all for me. Because I consider that to be a lot of money to tie up into pedal. Fortunately, I was able to achieve it through trading. I had some, you know, good, you know, well, considerably valuable pedals that I was able to trade, and plus a little bit of cash, a little bit I had to throw on top of this time. So it wasn't just pedals; there was a little cash on that. But I got this pedal, and this is another way of doing it, guys. You know, something to consider. If you got a lot of stuff laying around and you're looking around your room, you're saying, "Hey, maybe I can trade some of this stuff for something that I do want," as opposed to, you know, spending you know, currency on it. So I've been going through that, and I like it. You know, I'll be honest with you, I enjoy the haggle part of it. You know, well, he was there because the guy I was trading with, he says, well, I don't want that pedal. Do you have this one? And I was like, I don't want to give that one up, because he knew I had it, because he watches. He might be watching right now. He's like, Andy, I don't know if I want to give that one up, but we made a deal there, and I have my first JHS pedal coming on its way, based on the JTM 45, like I said, so it fills my Marshall space spot here on my pedal board. So excited about that. Okay, I'm going to reach down here, guys. Ooh, excuse me. And I'm going to put on my glasses. And we're going to flip through these comments here. Let's see. My first Kramer guitar was solid maple. It was 11 pounds. That was 1985 model. I didn't keep that long. Yeah, I read that. Yeah, that really takes me back. Some of those Kramer guitars. Whoa, buddy. Oh God, who is that had a Kramer? I love Kramers, by the way. I thought a Kramer. It's funny that I don't have one. But I always wanted a Kramer guitar, but they were just they were more expensive than quartz. but yeah, those guitars back in the in the 70s, they were boats. They were all boats. That's just a fact because people wanted those. They still make fingeries. Too slippery for me. My heaviest guitar I ever owned was a '79 Fender Strat. It was a boat anchor. Yeah, we talked about that. $500 is definitely not a budget guitar in my eyes. Yep, $500 is definitely not a budget instrument, but the way it's going in 2 years, $899 will be a budget, and that's what's scary. Yeah, again, touching on that, and that's a good point, is that with inflation, guys, if you are going to, regardless of budget or not, if you're going to buy something new, especially a new guitar, it's never going to be cheaper than it is now, right now. That's why I just went ahead and did the deal, made that trade for the Squire, because they're not going to get any cheaper. The Squires, the 2023 Squires, the prices on those. If you thought these were expensive, wait till that comes, and that's just a reality. I can remember selling new Epiphone Les Paul standards for $199 in the shop where I work. Now Epiphones are $699 more. Yeah, dig that. Dig that, Mickey. The Epiphone 59 with hard case has dropped 100 in price over here this week. $794. Yeah, in pounds. Dig that. Happy to be here. Those 59 Epis are great guitars. I picked one up because his channel was blown away how great it is. I appreciate that, man. The fact that you even came by because of that. And that guitar really was a blessing to this channel, too. I don't talk about that. But that's when my subscriptions really kicked off, when I bought that guitar. And, I came to a realization. I was like, you had all these channels on YouTube where you have all these cats really pumping up these pricey guitars. When the reality from the ground, from my personal experience, is being a professional musician for all of my life. I have never walked into a session with dudes who had a custom shop, who even had, anything above a USA standard or a Fender, a USA, Mexican maids, a Korean maids, Japanese maids. Those are the ones that I saw. That's just the way it was. Do you ever consider resale value when purchasing a guitar? Yes. I consider resale value when I purchase everything. Even when I was doing this trade with for this pedal here, this Charlie Brown with the two that I was selling, I was considering, down the line, do I see this Charlie Brown as being something that's going to hold its value more than the two pedals that I'm trading for? And the answer is yes. The Charlie Browns, they don't stray too far away from their base price. So that decision was, very much informed by that, the resale value. I have a 2002 Epiphone Black Beauty Custom 3 pickup. Ooh, I love those. I had it beautifully set up, but no other changes. Does it sound perfect with all pickup combos? No. But the second and fifth switch positions are amazing. Yeah, I love the sound of the middle position in the Epiphone 59 with those Burstbucker 2 and 3s. Oh, I actually said it right this time. Burst, there, I didn't. Damn it. Burstbucker 2 and 3. Sorry, guys. That's a little quirk of mine. And I love the middle position sound of that a lot. I wasn't in love with the neck, and I wasn't in love with the bridge. It was the middle position. When you sum those two together, that was the magic. It wasn't enough for me to keep those pickups in that guitar, but yeah, I can dig that. That happens. All in, I paid $5 setup. Donner, I gotta try Charvel. Is it Charvel? Charvel. Sorry, guys. Charvel. Sorry, I've been out of the States for most of my life. My pronunciations are bad. The Mexican Charvel satisfied my need for American Charvel. I've played both and they feel exactly the same. Yeah. Again, guys, honestly, there's no difference between that Telecaster, that Squire Telecaster 40th anniversary I bought, and its upgrade Fender equivalent. As a matter of fact, it was a better guitar. I dare say that the Squires, yeah, they're getting pricey, but those Indonesian made that Telecaster is awesome, is what I'm trying to tell you. Those guitars are awesome. My Harley Benton, the DC Custom that I was talking about, that's an Indonesian guitar made in the same factory, by the way, as the Squire. So it's been said. I'm still trying to dig that one up and see if that's true. Been on the Gibson train too. Now play a nice Tokai main channel. Yeah, man, those Tokais are great. I told you, if you guys go back into my videos, you'll see I had the Tokai Love Rocks and I had that Gibson Les Paul Classic. The Classic won out, but only because the Tokai Love Rocks I had had the 58 neck on it. And, I love a thick neck, but a half a baseball bat in your hand is not really comfortable for me, so I had to pass on that. But yeah, Tokais are great guitars. I've never been in a shop that had them. Yeah, there's been a great topic. I usually make the re one, but I'm glad you made it. What's Charlie Brown like? As I said, I don't know yet. I'm still trying to get it. I always love trading gear. It's the best feeling. Yeah, Mickey, it is. It's cool because you're like, you feel, and it's easier on your wallet too, that at the end of the day. And if you have a lot of stuff laying around, what are you, a friggin' museum? Are you a curator? Welcome to my pedal museum. Welcome to my guitar. No, just, if it's not needed, guys, move it now. Move it while you can, is what I'm trying to say also. I say that every week. But make your moves when you can. How are the Harley Benton DC Juniors? I have a DC Junior, actually. That's my other Harley Benton. I bought it for a niece of mine, but unfortunately the cost to send it over and a lot of things stopped me from doing it. So I actually still have it. It's a single P90, and I love it. It is the most toyish feeling. It doesn't have the gravitas that the Double Cut Custom has. How it feels like a good quality, low end it feels like it's got a little, I'm trying to mince words, I'm trying to be nice here, but it's a great guitar, but it feels toyish to me. But then again, all juniors always felt toyish to me, so that it might just be a personal quirk. But I own one. I have it sitting in the next room. That's my second. I have 3 Harley Bentons, this jazz bass, the Double Cut Custom, and the Junior. Somewhere in the world, 150 guitars, expensive guitars, some. Mickey, I'm glad you said that because I'll end with that. Because as you know, I've spent most of my life in Asia, traveling and touring, visiting, and going to a lot of different countries. And $50 is considered a lot of money for a guitar. I'll even break it down to that. I gave guitars away and have continued to even here. As you guys know, I recently gave a guitar away to music schools and to orphanages. I've given guitars away that I considered to be on the lower end of that mid-range, and they just weren't as nice as some of the nicer ones that I had coming in. But the look on those kids' faces when they got those guitars, and the appreciation on the instructors' faces, and just the way that they made it look like it was worth $1 million. They made it look the way that they react. Especially, I'll never forget in Thailand those kids when they got that guitar and the kid was holding it and everybody was looking and they just wanted to touch it. It was like it was a '59 Les Paul. It's just the reaction and that guitar was a 335. I think I paid $150, maybe $200 for it at a pawn shop in Tokyo. But those kids really appreciate it. Was and it's still I know that they're still using it. I know that it's still being used, and the other guitars. Yeah, man, we got to stop this. We're all from our glass, our high rises and our penthouses and our chauffeured cars, passing Grey Poupon back and forth between ourselves, between our Rolls Royces. We need to stop it. We need to stop it. We need to take a sniff of reality and what $500 in terms of putting it towards a guitar or any instrument, a violin, I could say, or a tuba or a trumpet or a bass guitar or you can go a drum kit, you know, is a considerable amount of money. So let's just keep that in mind. Let's not and don't let anybody insult you by calling your non custom shop guitar, a budget guitar. Don't go for that insult. It's insulting. It's insulting to the people who made it as well, because they take a lot of pride in Indonesia and the work that they do, especially if it's an Indonesian made. The Chinese, well, they got their other problems right now. Not looking so great. In fact, it's looking really horrifying there. So they got a whole set of other problems that we'll get into. I got some kids in the queue with some balls, and they went, yeah, man, yeah, they light up. They light up. The kids light up. They don't care, man. They don't care. Never had a desire for 300 free five by. Yeah, I do. I still got an itch for a 335, but I still have. Spending $2,300 for that FGN ain't gonna happen for all the reasons I've listed tonight. But I still haven't found a 335 in the mid range that speaks to me either. So I'm kind of stuck on 335s. But the kids and how they light up when they get that stuff, and their reactions and the joy, and they don't care if it says Fender, if it says Cort. It works for you. Be a good guitar is a good, yeah. No matter what, if it works for you, it works for you. Whether it said Fender or if it said Cort or Gibson or Custom, they didn't care, man. They cared the fact that they had something they could work with, and that was all that was important. And really, honestly, at the end of the day, that's all that really should be important for all of us. All right, guys, I will end it on that note. I appreciate you taking the time, of course, to stop by as usual. Uh, uh, I've had a long day today. I usually try to make my Sundays rest and relax and do things, but I had quite a hectic day today. I am actually physically and mentally tired, so I think I'm going to go to bed. It's past midnight here. I don't think you call me an old man by saying that. Uh, I'll have my Ovaltine first. You guys remember that? Maybe not the Ovaltine commercial. I used to love that crap. I loved Ovaltine more than Quick, actually. And the worst Quick you could give me is Strawberry Quick. That stuff tasted like vomit. So anyway, whether you're having your Ovaltine or your hey Mickey, thanks man. I thank you. God bless you, man. You really are a blessing, man. You do so much for me. I appreciate it. Whether you're having your Ovaltine or your Quick on your way up or out tonight or today, that's a real small guitar shop near me. I'm excited to go to support the business. Yeah, support your local shops too. And that's another thing, the theme that I'm going to get on when we go this week to Utrecht, down to the guitar shop too, is talk to him about that subject, about supporting online. You love Ovaltine. I love Ovaltine more than Quick, especially malted Ovaltine. You can't get malted Quick. They don't even make that. If you're gonna have a beverage of that sort, go with the malted Ovaltine. Yeah, we'll talk about that with him about supporting local shops and the importance of that. So we'll get into that, guys. Hey guys, thank you so much for showing up tonight and sharing your thoughts and just spending time and being generous with your time with me as well. I appreciate you coming up and supporting me. And be careful this week. Take care of yourselves. Keep your heads up. Don't let things get you down. Keep positive attitude. And I will see you again this time next week. And I promise you, I will have some regular content this week as well. All right, guys. Bye bye.